Imagine this. A routine traffic stop turns into a shocking confrontation when a police officer, believing he's just dealing with another ordinary driver, aggressively arrests a black woman. But as the situation escalates, the officer discovers something that completely changes the course of the entire interaction and his life. What started as a seemingly typical encounter quickly spirals into a tense standoff, with the officer's actions revealing deep-seated biases that many of us may recognize all too well. The woman, calm but firm, is forced into handcuffs without any clear reason, her rights seemingly ignored. But what the officer doesn't know is that this is no ordinary driver. This woman is a highly respected state prosecutor, someone whose entire career has been dedicated to justice, and now the law itself is being twisted right before her eyes. As the officer stands there, handcuffs in place, unaware of who he's truly dealing with, the tension is thick. Will the woman's true identity change how she's treated in this moment? Or is this yet another example of systemic injustice? You can almost feel the pulse of suspense as the officer begins to realize his mistake. But by then, it may be too late to undo the damage. In this video, we'll dive into what happened next, how power dynamics, race, and authority played out in this explosive situation. Was the officer's reaction an isolated case, or does it reflect a deeper issue in law enforcement? Stick around to see how this tense encounter unfolds, and stay tuned for the shocking revelation that will leave you questioning everything you thought you knew about justice and power. The officer, still unaware of the woman's true identity, begins to ask her questions with a tone that's anything but neutral. He accuses her of being uncooperative, even though she hasn't raised her voice or resisted in any way. As he tightens the handcuffs, his frustration grows, and it becomes clear that he is making assumptions based on her appearance and demeanor, something all too familiar to people of color when interacting with law enforcement. She remains calm, maintaining control over her emotions, but internally she's fuming. Every part of her knows this is not just an issue of personal treatment, it's a bigger problem, one that reflects the larger racial tensions and biases embedded in the system. But she also knows that any attempt to speak up could make things worse, as the officer seems determined to escalate the situation no matter what. The woman's mind races as she wonders how far this will go. She's lived through enough moments like this, but they've never been quite like this one. She's fought battles in courtrooms before, but here, the courtroom is on the side of the road and the stakes feel higher. She's been a prosecutor long enough to know the power of the badge and the risks of challenging authority, but she also understands the crucial need to stand firm. Meanwhile, the officer seems increasingly agitated, questioning her more aggressively despite her calm responses. The seconds stretch, becoming tense minutes, as both of them face off in an uncomfortable silence. It's only when he asks for her ID that she sees an opening to defuse the situation, but she hesitates for just a second. What happens next will completely change the direction of this already volatile encounter. Does the officer get a wake-up call, or does he double down, further entrenching his misguided beliefs? With every second that ticks by, the tension rises and the stakes get even higher. As she reaches into her purse for her driver's license, her fingers brush against the worn leather of her badge holder. The weight of it, a symbol of authority and justice, feels heavier in her hand than it ever has before. She could show him now, put an end to the madness, but she hesitates. The last thing she wants is to be treated differently because of her title, but at the same time, she knows the power of her position could change everything in this moment. The officer watches her with suspicion, his hand still gripping his radio, ready to call for backup. His jaw is clenched, his body stiff with an aggression that feels entirely out of place for a simple traffic stop. But to him, it isn't just about a stop anymore, it's about control. The subtle racial undertones of the encounter are becoming more apparent with every passing moment. He's not just frustrated with her demeanor, he's threatened by it. He's a man of authority, and in his mind, she's undermining that authority with her calm, poised resistance. Glance feels like an accusation. She's been the recipient of this kind of treatment countless times, But it stings even more now because of what's at stake. If she reveals who she is too soon, she risks the officer backing down simply because of her position. If she doesn't, this could escalate into something far worse. Her mind flashes to the countless cases she's worked, cases where she's fought to ensure justice for victims of systemic racism, where she's watched the law be manipulated and twisted to fit certain narratives. In the courtroom, she's always had the power to speak truth, but out here, on the side of the road, the law doesn't seem to be on her side. It's surreal, almost impossible to believe that, in this moment, she's just another black woman, vulnerable to the biases that plague so many. As the officer demands her ID once again, she slowly pulls out the card, hesitating for just a beat longer than she should. The tension is unbearable, each second stretching further. Does she reveal herself now? Does she confront him with the power of her title? Or does she continue to ride out this storm of his ignorance and assumption? Then, something unexpected happens. His radio crackles to life, distracting him just for a moment. It's a brief lapse, but it's enough for her to take a deep breath, to steady herself. But just as she's about to speak, the officer's eyes narrow. "I've had enough of your attitude," he snaps. The words hang in the air like a challenge, leaving her with a choice she never thought she'd have to make. Her heart pounds in her chest. If she challenges him now, will it only make matters worse? Or is this the moment where the balance of power shifts? The unknown answers to those questions are terrifying, and yet she knows, deep down, that this moment could change everything, not just for her, but for anyone who's ever been underestimated, overlooked, or wrongly judged based on the color of their skin. The officer's grip on his radio tightens, his knuckles whitening as the crackling voice on the other end is barely audible over the pounding of her heart. Every breath she takes feels measured, calculated, an attempt to keep her composure intact. The weight of the moment is unbearable, and with each passing second, she wonders if this is the breaking point. Is this where it all escalates? The thought of being forcibly dragged through the mud, despite her career and her life's work, sends a cold shiver down her spine. She glances at the officer's face, trying to gauge his next move, but there's no way to read him now. His eyes are narrowed, face flushed with a mix of impatience and something darker. She wonders how much longer he's going to hold onto his anger before it spills over, before this already explosive encounter detonates completely. Her mind flickers to the stories she's heard, the cases she's worked on, stories of black men and women subjected to excessive force for nothing more than the crime of existing. Stories of power unchecked, of laws bent to serve the interests of those in control. This moment is no longer just about her. It's about the weight of history, about how her very identity could be the thing that either de-escalates or intensifies this confrontation. "Step out of the car," the officer demands suddenly, his voice sharp like a whip crack, sending a jolt of fear through her. He's not asking, he's ordering. His hand hovers near his gun, the slightest shift of his fingers signaling that he's on edge. She knows she can't comply with an order like that, not without pushing this even further. But she also knows that refusing could lead to worse consequences. How far will he go to assert his dominance? The seconds stretch long, the silence almost unbearable, until the officer's gaze flicks to her purse again. There it is, her badge, still tucked safely in her bag. The officer's eyes narrow as he seems to spot it, but he doesn't react right away. He simply stares at it, as if trying to piece together what he's seeing. And then, just as she opens her mouth to speak, he snaps, "What are you hiding in there?" His question hangs in the air, sharp and accusing. The tension is so thick, you could cut it with a knife. Does he already know? Does he sense the power she's holding just beneath the surface, or is he still too clouded by his biases to recognize it? Her mind races, knowing that this is it, the breaking point. The moment when her identity, her career, her very sense of justice could be the thing that either saves her or pushes him to a dangerous breaking point. Her voice catches in her throat. What if revealing herself to him now only makes everything worse? What if it doesn't change his mind at all? The risks of revealing her identity are enormous, but the stakes of staying silent are even greater. In that terrifying, heart-stopping moment, every possible outcome feels like a trap. She takes a slow, steadying breath, her fingers gripping the edge of her seat, the only thing holding her steady now. The officer's posture stiffens as he waits, his impatience building into something more dangerous. And in that instant, time seems to stop. Everything is on the line. What happens next could change the way he sees the world, or it could make him dig his heels in even further. The question is simple, but the answer is anything but. What will she do? Her mind is a blur of thoughts, each one racing to the forefront of her mind, fighting for space. She could reveal herself now, show the badge and end it all, but a part of her, some deep-seated instinct, tells her not to. Something about the officer's aggression, the way his hands twitch near his weapon, tells her it might just make things worse. She knows instinctively that this isn't just about her. It's about the deep biases he's carrying, about power and control. But then, just as she opens her mouth to speak, a sharp, familiar voice cuts through the tension. "Hey, what's going on here?" The voice comes from the distance, but it's close enough to stop everything in its tracks. The officer's head snaps toward the sound, his posture shifting immediately from aggression to uncertainty. His hand freezes just inches away from his gun. The voice is loud, confident, but calm, too calm. Out of nowhere, a second figure steps into the scene. A second police officer, wearing a different uniform, strides toward them with purpose. He looks at the first officer, his brow furrowed in confusion, and then at the woman, his eyes narrowing in suspicion. There's a moment of silence, a tense beat where neither of them speaks. "What's going on here, officer?" The newcomer repeats, his tone more neutral, less accusatory. It's clear from his expression that he's not happy with what he's walking into. The first officer's jaw tightens. He glances at the woman, then back at his colleague, clearly unsure how to explain the situation. His earlier confidence begins to crack. She's being uncooperative. Uncooperative. The second officer raises an eyebrow, taking in the scene. His gaze moves between the two of them, and then, to the first officer's surprise, he looks at the woman. There's a flicker of recognition in his eyes, a subtle shift, like he's suddenly piecing something together. Before the first officer can respond, the second officer speaks again, but this time his voice softens. "Ma'am, is everything all right here? Do you need help?" The question hangs in the air, loaded with implication. For the first time, the woman feels a slight shift in the power dynamic. The newcomer isn't buying the story the first officer is selling. But what does that mean? Does he see through the officer's act, or is he just trying to diffuse a tense situation? Her heart races. This new officer's presence feels like a lifeline, but it's also a risk. Could he be another obstacle? Is he about to complicate things even further? The tension between the two officers builds, the air thick with an unspoken challenge. The first officer is no longer in control, and the second officer isn't just asking questions, he's questioning authority. The woman knows that this moment is slipping through her fingers. Does she speak up now, or does she wait and see how this unfolds? If she reveals who she is now, will it be the final spark that makes everything explode? The uncertainty is suffocating. Her career, her safety, and the truth about what's really going on hang in the balance. The seconds stretch on, each one feeling like an eternity. The stakes are rising, and she's running out of time. The tension between the two officers is palpable, and her own situation feels like it's teetering on the edge. The second officer's gaze flicks between the first officer and the woman, his brow furrowed as the silence stretches. There's a brief moment where everything seems to freeze, the air thick with tension, before he finally speaks, his voice calmer now, but still firm. "I think you need to step back, officer. Let's figure out what's going on here, before things get out of hand." The first officer stiffens, his eyes flicking nervously between his partner and the woman. His grip on the radio tightens once more, but something in the second officer's steady, authoritative tone seems to rattle him. He takes a half step back, his posture less sure now, more defensive. It's clear he's losing control of the situation, and that uncertainty gives the woman just enough of a window.